Hello, I'm Toops from Team CGS and I have a very special video here today. I was going to do a scripted review. Basically what I mean by that is I was going to write a script and just read it out. But this is the type of game that really deserves to be approached from the heart, as it were. It's quite hard to explain really, but Beyond Good and Evil was released in 2003 on multiple formats on the PlayStation 2, Xbox, PC and the GameCube, which is quite surprising really. But anyway, moving on, Beyond Good and Evil was a commercial failure. I briefly talked about this game, or included footage of the game in my Power Slave Exhumed video, because that game, like this, was criminally overlooked by the mainstream gaming fraternity. And I have to hold my hand up and say that I was one of them. I wasn't interested in the game when it first came out in 2003. I didn't bother with it. In spite of the reviews that I'd read, in spite of my sister urging me to play the game. My sister's an avid gamer and she's been playing games all her life as well. You know, she knows a good game when she sees one. And she was urging me to play this game and I just, in spite of that, I ignored her and I just ignored it. Totally. And I feel terrible. I'm absolutely gutted that I helped to contribute to the dismal sales of this gem of a game. It was designed and developed by Ubisoft. The director was a guy called Michel Ancel. I'm not entirely sure where it was created. I think it was created in France. And if you don't already know, Michel Ancel is the creator of Rayman. And I think that is primarily the reason why I ignored it. It's not really my type of thing. I never really liked the 2D versions of Rayman. I never got into it. I did buy Rayman 3 and the graphics were, it was a beautiful game, but as I said, it wasn't really my cup of tea, and I think that basically made me think, oh, it's the same guy, it's the same company, it's the same type of thing basically. And I was just totally wrong. You should never ever judge a book by its cover. But it's quite unique as well because it incorporates lots of different genres of game. Now, the reason why I say it's unique is because when you think of games that try to be more than it really is, that try to incorporate lots of different genres of game into one game, they usually fall flat on their face because they try to do too many things at once and they don't excel at anything. You know, as the saying goes, you can be a practitioner of many different types of art, but you are masters of none. You can be the master of none of them. While in the majority of cases that's true, Beyond Good and Evil does a good enough job to make the whole experience a coherent, artistic whole. Because it is a very artistic game. It's actually based on, I think, a book by the same name, though I don't think it follows it very closely. But anyway, the game's not perfect. No game is. There are two niggling issues that I had, and I still have to this very day with the game. Before we go into that, let's talk about the different genres first. It's an action-adventure game, primarily. It incorporates RPG elements, racing elements, because there are racing games in Beyond Good and Evil. Shooter elements as well, because when you start flying around the place, you can start shooting enemies. As well as photography elements as well. I don't know if you've played Pokemon Snap on the N64, but I was a massive fan of that, as was my sister. Now, you may have noticed that I like games that have photography elements built into them, and that's because I'm a keen amateur photographer myself. I like having the ability to be able to control every aspect of the pictures that I take using a DSLR. I mean, a DSLR is the only camera that you can do that with. You can't do that with a mobile phone camera, that's for sure. And obviously I wasn't expecting that level of control within a game, but it's still, nevertheless, it's still nice to have. So with Pokemon Snap, it was very on rails. You basically stepped onto a tram and you went from one point to the next, from A to B, and along the way you would take photos of the Pokemon in their natural habitat, and depending on the quality of your photograph, you were given guidelines as to how to take the best photographs, like the composition and so forth. Then you got more points. And that was an awesome game, I like that. And that basically just concentrated on just one thing. Beyond Good and Evil, I thought, was going to be absolutely awesome because it's going to incorporate Pokemon Snap and everything else. But with Beyond Good and Evil, however, I found an issue with the game very early on, and that was the fact that you could take a photograph of a particular animal. Oh, by the way, the story goes that she needs to get credits for this generator that creates a shield in order to protect the orphanage that she's in charge of. And, you know, she needs to try and protect these children. But like energy companies today, the greedy sons of guns. Can I say that? Sons of guns? Is there such a word? Such a phrase, sorry? They're greedy bastards anyway. Yeah, they cut her power supply, and so the shield is turned off, and the aliens attack, and they attack the orphanage. And that's basically why she's taking these photos, in order to gain credits. Now, there was definitely a missed opportunity here, because when you took a photograph, it didn't matter the camera angle, the composition, or anything. You got the same number of points regardless. And even if they'd incorporated the fairly limited aspects of Pokemon Snap, it would have really added to an already amazing game. Because the incentive would have been there for the player to try and capture or try to get the perfect image to get more credits in order to protect the children. But that wasn't apparent in Beyond Good and Evil. You just took a photo, you sent it off, and then that was it. You just got the same score. You couldn't take any more photos than that. Once you took a photo and you sent it off, that was it. And that was definitely a missed opportunity. That was one of the biggest drawbacks of Beyond Good and Evil. But I'm not being too critical, I hope, because it was nice to have that in the first place. It's nice to have that element incorporated within the actual gameplay, because it features prominently throughout the whole thing. And the second element is the orphans themselves in the orphanage. Now, when you first start playing, there's this sense that the player has to try and protect these children at all costs. And they kind of like conjure up these paternal instincts within the player, or for me anyway. Even though I'm not at that stage in my life quite yet, it's still there, you know, to try and protect these kids, because that's what I'm naturally inclined to do anyway, and that's what the game starts off as doing. The kids are transformed or captured by these alien creatures, and you need to try and save them. And it's further reinforced by the scribblings on the wall, and looking at the children sleeping, and they look really, really cute. And then later on, you find during the game, they've been completely forgotten about. You know, the whole issue of the orphans and the protection of these kids, and the paternal instincts that were quite apparent early on in the game seem to have been brushed under the table and forgotten about in favour of this urge, or this greater alien conspiracy that you'll no doubt find out later on within the game. And I was infuriated by that. It really annoyed me, because I was finding myself going back to the island, or to the lighthouse where these kids resided, and checking up on them, even though I knew that there was nothing more to be gained from going there. You know, when you play a game, you go, in the majority of cases anyway, you go for some sort of reward. You know, you go to pick up a new quest, you go up to pick up an upgrade, you go up to find something new, even if it's an Easter egg. And even though I knew that by going back to the island to see the orphans, I wouldn't get anything in return, I wanted to go and check up on them to make sure that they were safe and sound, because this whole premise started at the very beginning of the game, and yet by the midpoint they had been completely forgotten about. And yeah, it was something that really annoyed me, basically. It's something that they should have really, Michel Ancel specifically being the designer, he should have concentrated on, and he should have made that whole idea, that whole notion of paternal instinct run throughout the whole game, not just at the very beginning and just forget about them, because how can you just forget about them? It's just stupid. So those are the two major niggles. I mean, there are other issues as well, such as camera angle issues, graphical glitches, but those are minor. Those are really, really minor. And even those two major issues, I say major, they're not enough to detract from the overall enjoyment of the game. As I said before, a coherent artistic whole. It still works out amazingly enough. It's a game of cultural diversity as well, and I noticed this straight away. I noticed that from the very beginning, for instance, when you are fighting, the orchestral themes that really spur you on. and that happens, as I said, at the very, very start, contrasted with the later sections when you go to the junkyard, and they have like French rappers singing there, doing their thing, doing their thing. And you know, that contrast really works. It's a really artistic game, and I don't just mean graphically. The art direction's really, really great, but I mean also in terms of the different genres and also the music as well. It just all works out. It's not mismatched. You would automatically expect that. Or how can you have classical orchestral themes together with French rappers? It just doesn't make sense. But in actual fact, it does work out. And apart from that, I think the game was too short as well. I mean, a lot of time and effort had gone into the game. I could see that straight away, but yeah, it could have benefited from being slightly longer. But all in all, it was an absolutely amazing game. Definitely one of my favourite games of all time, even though I started playing only around 5 or 6 years ago. And remembering that the game was released in 2003, it's shocking, I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ubisoft, I'm sorry. There's supposed to be a Beyond Good and Evil 2 in development. I'm not too sure, you know. I don't believe that. I'm not a pessimist or anything. Well, I'll try not to be. But I would take that with a pinch of salt, really. It's been in development for a long, long time, and I'm not too sure. I mean, obviously it pains me to have to say that, because I would love to see a new one. I'd love to see a new one that incorporates the two major... Well, I don't suppose you can really incorporate the theme of the children and the orphanage so much, but the photographic elements, they could definitely improve. Other than that, I urge you to go out there and buy it. I mean, I've just bought myself the Ubisoft Classics collection. Sorry, I'm just picking it up. And basically it's got the 5 most iconic games in video gaming history: Assassin's Creed, Beyond Good and Evil, Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, Rayman 3 and Far Cry, all in one game. And I got this for a measly £6 from Amazon. £6 translates to probably around $12 US, maybe more. And that is cheap as chips. And some of the reviews said they bought it primarily because Beyond Good and Evil. I mean, it's absolutely true. For £6 just for that game, I'd pay 3 times that amount just for Beyond Good and Evil. But yeah, it's definitely worth playing if you haven't played it already. If you have any issues with how to set it up, because it's quite difficult to install on Windows 7. I bought the game. This is like a redemption video. Please forgive me for my past sins. No, I've lost count how many times I bought this game to try and make up for the fact I overlooked it. I bought it the HD version for the PlayStation 3. I bought it on the PC. I bought it on the PC again via GOG, because GOG have a fixed version that actually works on modern operating systems. And so yeah, there's no excuse to go and buy it, guys. Just go and buy it. You won't regret it. And if you regret it, then I'm sorry, but yeah, I'm just sorry. I was going to say something horrible then, but no. It's a great game. Just buy it. This is Toops from Team CGS. Until next time, guys, I'll see you later. Goodbye!